you live from Illinois. It's the Jetpack, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is your host, Jetpack J, Sanjay Gupta, and I got my boy Matty Nice over there on the beats. And we have a great show for you today on the Full Honest podcast. We're going to be talking Boeing. We're going to be talking Airbus has a plane that catches fire at O'Hare today on Memorial Day.
Shit.
And we got our good friend Allie here joining us on the podcast. She actually used to work at Boeing and is going to be talking to us about some interesting things that she learned while she was over there and some other interesting things that she's got going on and she's been working on for the last year or two.
More so just opinions. We're just
that's what we do
out here on the Full Honest. We're just we're talking about how we see the world. But she has a very unique perspective, especially with the Boeing topic,
right?
Because she worked there for a little while.
Yeah. So we got some of the inside scoop.
Damn right, y'all. We got that insider information.
Yeah, we got some insider information. We're gonna make some trades.
We're getting real conspiratorial out here. Yeah, just so y'all know, at Boeing, I'm not related to her. You know, don't hunt me down. These are strictly her opinions and her opinions alone.
We're not trying to get anybody whacked here. It's just we're just chatting.
We're just having a good time.
Yeah.
Enjoying our American right to free speech is all. That's all we do here.
That's right.
So let's get into it. So we got an article here pulled up from the one and only Yahoo. It's a WGN Chicago article. Takeoff aborted after United Airlines flight reportedly catches fire out here. And you know this hits home for me because not only because it's at Chicago, but also it's United and I love flying United. So that's that hurts.
Here's a little
negatory for me.
We got a wrinkle. It's not a Boeing.
Yeah, and here it is. It's right here, Airbus A320. So it wasn't a Boeing plane. Finally, for once it wasn't a Boeing plane.
Yeah, we picked a story to lead into this just to show that we like to pick on everybody from all angles. You know, if you're making mistakes, if you're being negligent like that, we're coming for you. Airbus, your planes are catching on fire too.
But could it be that it could have been what was this? Oh, it's United, so could they have just not done maintenance on it and then some maintenance issue could have happened when the fire started?
True. It is United. You got to take these things into account. They don't operate on all cylinders out there. But
that's true. Or I guess taking on the conspiracy angle, have you guys considered that maybe this was a Boeing employee who set the plane on fire as a way to kind of, move publicity from Boeing to Airbus.
Wow, you just went like
full
Boeing. Yeah, you went even more down conspiratorial avenue here. As
you guys said, I worked for Boeing. This is past. Ex-Boeing employee. There's a good reason why I don't work there anymore. It happened like way before any of this craziness started happening, but it was
before the plane started falling out of the sky.
Exactly. I quit the company before then, but that certainly did not make me want to go back anytime soon.
I couldn't imagine.
I watched the John Oliver YouTube video. It was like 30 minutes, and after watching that, I was just like, wow, I wouldn't put it past Boeing at this point to do something that crazy. Sending one of their own people in to make the competition look bad.
Potentially took out their whistleblowers. I mean, there are two of them who have suicided themselves, which will have a little RIP moment to our Boeing whistleblowers out here.
Whistleblowers, because one of them. So I actually got. We'll get into that too. One of them was they just finished the investigation and said it was a suicide and not a murder. So that was like a 2-week investigation. We'll see. We'll see about that. And then the other person was perfectly healthy, regular, normal guy, and then he just like got crazy sick out of nowhere and got MRSA, and then just like died.
Those crazy sick out of nowhere illnesses that creep up on you, dude.
I was kind of kidding with the conspiracy theory thing, but you just don't know anymore in today's world. You just don't.
I mean, it says right here, currently it is unclear what sparked the fire. So very well, it could have been a Boeing employee who was, just taking a flight to, where was this going? Where was this flight going?
You heard it here first, people.
Seattle. Oh, this was going to you. This is coming your way. This plane was supposed to come see you today. And a Boeing it all makes sense. Boeing is from
coming
Seattle.
together, dude.
They sabotage a plane that's coming to Seattle, their main competitor. It's all coming together now. Boeing did this.
Let's at least say it wasn't a Boeing employee, and we can just say like or Boeing hired
Boeing contracted it out.
We're unfortunately losing Allie right now on our stream, so bear with us as we've got a little technical difficulties. I unfortunately don't have capabilities of bringing her in without batteries, so I'm hoping I've got enough. Sorry for the interruption there,
but a
little
bit of a technical difficulty.
Right, I've got my fingers crossed here that we got enough battery juice to keep our guest in here, because otherwise that'd be a little embarrassing. But hey, we persevere through our embarrassment out here, which is the key. You know, you gotta be persistent.
Yep. Okay. Allie is back. Yep. We are good.
Good job.
All right.
You do gotta persevere through the embarrassment in life, though, Matt. I applaud you.
Thank you. I just try to spit wisdom in my moments of desperation out here. That's what you gotta do.
We can absolutely say it wasn't necessarily Boeing employee directly that sabotaged this flight, but I would maybe put money on a Boeing contracted that to someone else.
Yeah. Gosh, would not put it past him these days, unfortunately.
No.
Allie, what was your job at Boeing exactly? What was your title?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. I should have known as your brother.
No, but I mean, this actually is very relevant because when I was an intern, they placed me in the quality assurance department, which is... Uh-oh, you guys are frozen. Can you hear me?
Oh, yep. Sorry, I was just doing a little change to the screen size, and it turns out that wasn't the right thing to do. Okay, we're good. Sorry.
Okay. So,
sorry for our technical difficulties out here, y'all. We do our best.
It happens. We all lived through the pandemic. We understand.
That's great. So you were an intern first?
Yeah, so I was an intern, and they placed me in the quality assurance department, which was sort of like an afterthought even then. This was like 8 years ago. Quality assurance was not a very big part of the company. And it was, they treated it kind of like an afterthought. It was sort of like structured off to the side a little bit. It was supposed to like kind of oversee the whole thing, and I don't know. I got the sense that the quality assurance department was there because it had to be, but the company, if it were up to them, would have loved nothing more than to just like do away with the entire department, because they just saw them as, a roadblock to the production line.
To profit,
which is exactly what they're supposed to do. That is their job. Their entire job is that they're supposed to be doing thorough quality investigations of every single product to make sure that each plane is airworthy. That is their entire job. That is what they're there to do. That is what the FAA has instructed them to do. And working in that department, people were so frustrated and jaded because they felt like they couldn't do their job, or when they did do their job and they called out when something was wrong, they just got swept under the rug because it was impacting the bottom line or the production schedule, which was the number one priority. So I got the sense even then, 8 years ago, that they did not respect the, responsibility of the quality department.
Right. And that's actually insane, because they are literally tasked with carrying hundreds of thousands of lives daily in their planes across the world, which is almost like magic if you don't know how planes work, which is pretty much like magic anyways if you do know how they work. But it's insane that, and like the FAA is just like, all right, well, you have, in the case of a couple years back, the two planes that went down, just like out of nowhere, they nosedived at like 15,000 feet or whatever. There was some sensor on the front of the plane that if one of them wasn't working, there was one on each side of the nose. If one of them wasn't working, that it would just automatically read that the plane was stalling, and it would just, because when a plane stalls, the nose is too high, or there's not enough lift, or something along those lines. I'm not an engineer, but and so it would automatically take control from the pilots and then force it to level out. But leveling out would be like a critical nosedive, and there was no way for the pilots to get control of the plane back. And it took them, from the first crash that happened, they were saying, okay, we're going to roll out like a patch to the software to update it. And they said it would take 6 weeks. And in between those 6 weeks, another plane crash had happened due to the same exact thing. And so it's like they have hundreds, if not thousands of these planes flying around with this technology in it that is critically malfunctioning. And they're like, it'll be 6 weeks. We got it, but it's going to take 6 weeks, while hundreds to thousands of these planes are still flying around. It's insane.
Yeah. So I think there's I just got refreshed on all of this by watching the John Oliver video, which like everybody should watch. It's 30 minutes and gives just like a super comprehensive like overview in a very funny way. And it's sad coming from a Boeing employee, because it's like, it's funny, but it's also like, yeah, we lived through that. But what I thought was like so striking about it was the reason that this whole thing came about with the 737 MAX, because Boeing had been just like cruising top of the line, like, top of the competition with the 737s. But then Airbus came out with their competing airplane, the A320neo,
caught on fire.
Well, so it's like it was a derivative even of that, the A320neo. And Boeing was like, oh shit, well, we now have to compete with this. So we're going to come out with this thing called the 737 MAX. And their whole thing about it, like the reason why they sold it so well, was because they were like, it's going to be similar enough to the 737 that the pilots aren't going to need to get retrained for this new aircraft. And so that was like their whole selling point behind it. And so these pilots were not made aware of the system that you're talking about, Sanjay. It was the MCAS system. The system goes on the plane. It's brand new. It's never been on any airplane before, and nobody was told about it. And so the sensor system was super sensitive, to the point where like a bird, or like some of the engineers were saying a balloon, could interfere with the sensor and cause it to go into that like auto correcting where the nose would come down on the plane. But when it was, when it was triggered to happen, when it didn't need to, it took control from the pilots. And because the pilots didn't know about this system, they didn't know how to override it. And so this system basically just dove the nose of the plane into the ground. The pilots had no idea how to disengage, and so they just went straight into the ground. So the whole thing is just wild, because like, in my opinion, I don't think they even needed to come out with the 737 MAX in the first place. They were doing it just as a way to stay in competition with Airbus, who put out their new airplane. And it was just a complete disaster from the start.
It just, they didn't even need to put the system on there in the first place. It's a brand new system, like you said, and like it's never been used before, and it's clearly not doing its job. So why even put the system on there in the first place? Like,
well, I think they corrected some of the errors. They mentioned that in the video we watched, but yeah, it definitely was not functioning correctly at first. Allie, was this was the 737 MAX? Was that the plane you guys were working on when you worked there, mostly?
Yeah, or? It was in production when I was working there.
Let's so you've been referencing the John Oliver video. We want to pull up a little clip from it, just a little portion, a little snippet.
And investigations revealed that even people building the Dreamliner were worried about its safety. In 2000.
Buffering.
No, this is a good video, and it ties into our next topic.
14. Al Jazeera released hidden camera footage of a worker at a Dreamliner plant asking fellow employees a pretty pointed question.
Would you fly on one? No. You won't fly on one. Would you fly on one of these planes? Would you fly on one of these?
He kills was it?
Probably not. I wouldn't fly one of these planes. You wouldn't? Why wouldn't you?
Huh?
Why wouldn't you?
Because I see the quality of going down around here.
Would you fly one of these?
Yeah, it's sketchy.
Sketchy.
Yeah, I probably would, but I mean, I'm having death wish too.
That's the guy I like. That's the reason I wanted to bring him up, is you got guys in the factory who are probably making like $25 an hour or whatever. They got families and they're getting just stressed out by some managers hawking down on them. What difference really does it make to them how well the planes are put together? It's more just like they get paid the same $25 at the same at the end of the day. It is alarming to see things like that being said by the people putting together your planes, though, for sure.
Yeah, the ones that are coming off the assembly line that are being shipped out to other United, American Airlines, whatever, what have you, whatever you like to fly. No, that's terrifying.
But it wasn't necessarily a testament to their craftsmanship or anything. I don't want to
not
say
the
like that.
not
It's
yeah.
more so the parts that they're getting. They're cutting. Boeing is cutting corners. Is the point that we're trying to make.
Right.
They're getting a bunch of parts from a bunch of different sellers.
Right.
Probably to make things
cheaper.
all happen cheaper. And it's obviously having it's backfiring on them a little bit.
Right. If you guys do end up watching this John Oliver video, it is 30 minutes long. It is really good, really informative. He does say, or they do talk about, they interview someone from Boeing. They're like, yeah, basically the issue is that we contracted out to someone and then they contracted out to somebody else and then they contracted out to the next person. And like you just don't know. It's like 7 contractors down the line and you're like, well, how are they going to check all of that?
You lose a little bit of quality control when
every time it gets passed off to someone else.
In the kitchen.
Right, exactly. So it's like, and then the people, the 2 whistleblowers that did blow the whistle, I did a little more research on it. So the first whistleblower was John Barnett. And this is what I was talking about earlier, that said that the police investigation went on, and they're saying that he committed suicide, which doesn't seem right. He was doing his deposition in court, and as I remember, Boeing had asked him to stay an extra day so that they could ask him some more questions. And he was like, well, really, I want to get back home. Like, I think he was already there for like 2 weeks or something like that. But he was like, all right, I'll stay one more day, and then I'm out of here. Like, that's it. And then...
It happened in Charleston, South Carolina, where I was just living for a couple of years. Shout out.
Right, yeah.
It happened in a Holiday Inn. I mean, it's a depressing place, but it also does kind of sound like a place where, somebody could hunt you down and be like, you're getting suicided right now.
Right. And so it says, from the article, it says Barnett, 62, was found dead in a vehicle on March 9th from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in Charleston. Officers...
it didn't happen at Holiday Inn. Okay.
No. Well, he was staying at a Holiday Inn, but it happened in his car, it seems like. They say when they arrived...
Also very sketchy.
Yeah,
that's like The Godfather, you hop in the car and then the guy behind you is
sitting in the back seat. Yeah, he's got the piano wire and he's got you.
Is that what he uses?
Yeah, it's piano wire. Yeah.
That's really good fact. I didn't know that.
Because I guess it's super sharp. I don't know. I've never murdered a man with piano wire.
It wouldn't rip, I would imagine.
No, yeah, it's got to be super strong.
Yeah.
So the police are saying that this guy committed suicide, and they say that he shot himself in the head at close range, and the weapon was found in his right hand. So they're saying it was a suicide, which seems very unlikely. He was also a quality manager at Boeing for decades. You're the last line of defense, just like you said. Like your job is to make sure that these planes are absolutely 100% flight worthy, and like it doesn't seem like that they were. That management was allowed
single
to do it.
Plane fly out of Charleston that he put his name on, saying is safe and airworthy.
Yeah, this is crazy. So he says
that's a quote.
He says he discovered unsafe wiring clusters in the manufacturing process. If severed by metal slivers, could have led to catastrophic failure of an aircraft. And then just like Matt said, he would never There's not been one plane that he would put his name on and say it's safe or
Damn, son.
airworthy.
Crazy.
Gosh,
bro.
that really makes me nervous
Damn.
because when I flew to Europe this past summer, it was my first, or last summer, it was my first time ever leaving the continent of North America. And I was so stoked because I was on a 787 Dreamliner because they like really hyped that plane up, you know? And now, like, as soon as I've been hearing all this again, and I kind of vaguely remembered it, but I was like, oh man, I'm glad I survived my trip to Europe.
I mean, flying is fairly safe. You know, it's like you're less likely to have an accident in a plane than you are actually in a car. But
for sure.
Just being in a giant metal can in the air is just off-putting. Because we're not. That's so unnatural. It's like humans were never meant to do that. I don't think.
You're not meant to fly. Ask Icarus.
Right. We flew too close to the sun. Then there's Joshua Dean, who's the other whistleblower who. It says he died. Okay, so he blew the whistle on Spirit leadership. They had ignored manufacturing defects on the 737 MAX, which is what we were talking about. That had that MCAS system. And he just he became ill
out of nowhere
and then went to the hospital, and then he was intubated and developed pneumonia and serious bacterial infection known as MRSA, which is really really serious. It doesn't it's a pretty rare one. It doesn't happen very often. He went to the hospital and he was put on a machine that circulates oxygen through his body because he couldn't breathe, or his body just couldn't move the oxygen itself. It's when the heart and lungs don't function. Yeah.
Wow.
And then so a CT scan says that he died of a stroke, but he was having all these different, his body just shut down on him essentially. And he was saying,
was he also in the middle of a disposition against Boeing?
I don't know that he was in the middle of the disposition, but I think he was being represented by the same lawyers that Barnett was being represented by, and I think they were either about to start or maybe they were in the beginning stages of going to court.
It is coincidental,
right? Two whistleblowers dead within a month apart, or a couple months apart. It's very, very sketchy, very sketchy looking,
to say the least.
And what he said that he noticed was serious manufacturing defect, mechanics improperly drilling holes in the aft pressure bulkhead of the MAX. And when he flagged the issue, nothing was done. And then another time, he says that he said he missed during the same audit a separate manufacturing flaw in the fittings that attach the vertical tail fin to the fuselage, which is incredibly important when you're flying. Because the fuselage is it's where the fuel goes, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Good. And then the tail fin, you need that to steer. What if that comes off? The plane is fucked. And then if it causes the fuselage to have issues, then you have jet fuel pouring around.
And I'm not an engineer. People always ask me, then they're like, when you worked at Boeing, were you an engineer? And I'm like, no, I wasn't. But the fuselage, as far as I know, is just the body of the aircraft, right? The body of the aircraft. So I don't actually know if it has anything to do with fuel, but
it sounds like it would.
I'd clear that up.
Conspiracy way, we're walking down that way.
It's not the fuel lodge. It's the fuselage.
But so basically, I mean, then it goes on to say in August, then Spirit announced that they discovered these issues, but he had been telling them all about it all ahead. So there's just a massive failure on management's. They're just in it for profit, which is insane because they get so much money from government contracts to make fighter jets and all the different parts and everything for the military. It's why skimp out on public safety when you're already making so many hundreds of millions? It's like $100 million for for one of those jet planes. It's insane how much it costs. And
that's true. Although the company was very divided, there was the defense portion of the company and then there was the commercial portion of the company. So I don't know if the finances overlapped. I don't think they did.
Okay.
So who knows? But the whole thing was it was just completely driven by profits. The culture completely shifted when management from McDonnell Douglas kind of took over in the merger. people that I worked with who had been multi-decade long Boeing employees, they'll all tell you that the shift happened at the exact same time. It was like everybody prior to 1990, whatever year it was that they merged,
Pretty sure it's 96.
Something
Year
like
of my
that.
birth, baby.
They loved working for Boeing. They felt like such pride in it. They felt like, it was such a quality product. They loved that there was such an emphasis on safety and quality. And then as soon as that merger happened, like pretty much anybody that I talked to in the company who had been around since then, like their entire attitude towards the company shifted. And they said that the whole culture of the company just sort of started to disintegrate from that time forward. So it's really sad.
Right.
Actually.
And it's terrible because when the engineers were in charge, they were making safe, viable airplanes that could fly with minimal issues. And there is something to be said about once Boeing sells the plane to whatever company, it's on the company to, like United or whatever, to actually do the maintenance on the planes and make sure that they're kept at, tip-top shape, which I can guarantee you not every airline is doing.
Equal, right? It's out of that Boeing's hands a little bit once
they
sell it.
Yeah,
right?
but to some degree, yes. But if it's a plane that's like within 5 years of its manufacture date, like that's on Boeing, because a plane is something that should be able to fly for millions of. Actually, I don't know. It feels like it should be able to fly at least a million miles, which it sounds like a lot, but it's already traveling thousands of miles if you're doing cross country flights. So I don't know. It just seems like Boeing is digging itself into, and the issue is that, like I just said, it gets so many military contracts that like the government's not really going to do anything because we are in two proxy wars, and they're just like, well, we need Boeing to do what they do so we can fund these wars. It's like,
it isn't necessarily in the government's interest to go after big companies like that anyway.
Exactly right. So it's a catch-22. Like, is anything really going to get done? I mean, their stock price has been nosediving, which is what they're very, very keen on. Like their whole
that's got to be their big nightmare,
right? Like their whole thing is, if you watch the John Oliver video to our audience, they actually say like you got to make sure everything is about the stock price. Like if anything we do, the stock price has to be in mind, because that's our job, is to make the stock price go up.
I got a message for Boeing: if your planes go down, your stock prices will go down as well.
That is it couldn't be more true. They are directly related.
It is very true. You got to keep your planes up to keep the stocks up.
Right. So
I haven't heard too recently any planes literally nosediving, but I've heard a couple of planes having to be grounded, I guess.
Right.
Which
I guess better,
like this Airbus one. Yeah, at least they're catching it before it becomes a catastrophic issue.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. There was the Alaska Airlines flight that the side of the airplane just ripped off, that one is scary. That one was scary for me and a lot of people in Seattle, because Alaska is our home airline. So pretty much anytime I fly domestically out of Seattle, I fly Alaska. So that one definitely
hit a little close to home, I'm sure.
No, that's terrifying. And then it
was a brand new plane.
Oh, right. See, like that's the terrifying thing, is like this is a brand new plane. What do you mean that the side of the plane just flew off? Yeah. It's insane. And then like their people are sitting there. Like there's video of it. I'm sure maybe we can edit in the video if we can find it. But like the people are sitting there with the fucking hole in the side of the plane. Like I would be shitting my pants, I think. Because like what, like
there's nothing you can do. You gotta land first.
Exactly.
Well, no, and they said that they were really lucky that it happened so shortly after takeoff, because if they had been at a higher altitude, people would have died.
They would have been sucked out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a movie.
Which insane. Yeah. I'm happy that nothing ended up happening in that case. Yeah. Boeing has they got some issues. They got to get it figured out. They got to get it figured out.
It was really cool to hear your perspective, Allie. We have a couple of other topics we wanna get to. We got you on Zoom right now, and Zoom is uncool like that. They only give you like 40 minutes of time, so we gotta zip to the next topic here if we can. So I think a good topic to transition into would be, we were talking about the culture shift at Boeing. When there's just an inherent problem with the culture of something, it's really hard to overcome. Like at Boeing, it seems like they've got a whole culture that revolves around money first, safety second. It's a little sad to put it that way, but it's probably the best way I could put it. The culture problem that I want to talk about is one that's a little bigger. It's one that I see every day, and that is not one that affects me so much personally as a guy who, no matter how much I eat, I can't gain any weight. R.I.P. to that. But a lot of people I know, there's a cultural stigma against anybody who doesn't have a perfect body, and it's like there shouldn't be a one size fit all, perfect body. Some people might be really into 5'1" and stocky as hell. That's not a typical kind of perfect body, but in some people's opinion, that could be it. That could be it. Yeah, I know that's something that you were interested in talking about on a podcast, Allie. So how does that issue affect you, or how do you see it manifest in your day to day?
Well, I would say currently I am actually like pretty happy to see, I follow, it's mostly women. I think, not to say that men or other gender identities aren't affected by body image. They definitely are. But I think women just sort of take the cake on that a little bit historically, because there have always been more kind of explicit beauty standards imposed on women, and what women look like is always one of the first things that people comment on. Like, I've been a fan of Brene Brown for a really long time. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's, just a really smart scientist, basically. Like, she's an emotional scientist. And so when she goes on stage, psychologist, but like I would say, I like saying scientist because she really looks at emotions from like the perspective of like the scientific method almost. Like she's just very like just I don't know, she like really dives research deep. Okay. Yeah, exactly. She's a research scientist. And anyway, so she would always say like she never really was somebody who cared much about, what she looked like that didn't really affect her sense of self. But that was always the first thing that people wanted to comment on. Like she would be up on stage talking very confidently about the things that she had researched, and felt very, she felt proud of what she had researched and felt like it was like super valuable information to be getting out to people. And she was always struck by the fact that the thing that people always said about her was about her appearance. And she's sort of just like what the fuck is this? Like, what do I have all this to offer, and the number one thing that people want to say, or like, they want to kind of disregard what I say because they don't like how I look, so that is just something that
it always comes back to looks, is what you're trying to say, and I get it.
For women
especially, and I'm gonna make a funny point about it. There was this video I saw on YouTube one time. This guy was like, "I'm watching female comedians until I laugh." So he got like, Amy Poehler and a bunch of different female comedians and lined them all up, and it's like a really long video. It's unfortunate. And the lady who got him to laugh is really funny, actually. She's like a really tall, kind of a ganglier built type woman.
Yeah.
And she's just talking about, I get so many compliments about like, my long beautiful legs, how my slender beautiful build, and all this stuff. And she's like, what about my face? And it was just the delivery that made the guy finally chuckle and laugh. But it's just like, it's so true. It's like I'm sure for her as a comedian, it was so difficult to get any kind of attraction, just because she looks a certain type of way, she doesn't look like immediately kind of appealing, when you don't fit a certain type of archetype is what I'm trying to say. It's really hard for you to get any kind of attraction,
Mm-hmm.
It's like I think about, I studied movies in college, media. I knew a lot of really talented people. I knew a couple of girls who were broadcasters for like sport broadcasting. I hope that they've made it in some way, but it's just like, were they pretty enough? I don't know. It's not like
that is also
do
true.
Their job well enough,
that's
it's
true.
Like,
if you look at like newscasters or sportscasters, especially women casters, like it's always blonde. It's a very specific type.
Exactly. You have to
and
fit the archetype.
You have to fit the archetype,
or you have to.
There are
really
some that break that
mold. You
mold.
have to be so good.
But
there
right.
are some older women in the NFL who I think might have just recently someone been fired. Like there's Rachel, what's her face? I forgot, but she's older. She's really good. Erin Andrews getting older, but she's obviously really beautiful and getting older now. But she's gonna be. It's not gonna be dependent on her.
Skill
beauty to
or
keep
her
her.
ability.
Yeah, it's right, exactly. No,
it'll be like
right. She has such a reputation that like it doesn't matter that she's getting older,
right,
and less beautiful. What a heartbreaking way to put it.
Yeah,
you're gonna lose your job just because you're getting old, and you get more expensive too. That's why that's why ESPN and NFL Network and a lot of people have been firing their analysts. And
also, I'm pretty sure ESPN is being sold off from Disney, and so like they're trying to maybe make it more of a marketable prospect for whoever picks it up, because Disney they have no reason to be in sports. To be honest,
keep the most attractive people on there. I didn't know that they own Disney.
They own
Disney owned ESPN.
Disney owns
everything.
So Fox sold all of their movie making, and like because Fox used to own ESPN, so they sold ESPN and like the movie rights. Like they own the rights to Marvel, or not Marvel. They own the rights to the Fantastic Four, and some other properties that Disney is now running with.
So Disney's got Fantastic Four now.
Yeah, they actually just released the cast list for the next Fantastic Four. It's
who's in? I actually have not seen this. It's not John Krasinski.
They dealt him out. Mr. Fantastic, is that his name? I can't remember. Stretchy Boy. He's gonna be played by the Hispanic guy who is Pedro Pascal. I'm pretty sure. I think.
Pedro, dude.
I think.
I think I heard this too.
Yes. Okay.
Pedro doesn't fit. Pedro doesn't.
It's
fit
an interesting. It's an interesting.
He has a lot of range, but
yeah.
That guy, Mr. Fantastic, doesn't have to have that deep of an emotional, thing going for him. I don't know how I feel about that pick. All right, who else is it? Who else is the cast?
That's the only person I can remember. I'm pretty sure they casted Miss Invisible Girl, Invisible Woman. I don't know what they call her. They used to call her Invisible Girl. Actually, when Jessica Alba
I think
played
she's
her,
Invisigirl.
When Jessica Alba played it in the movie way back when, then the first Fantastic Four was actually great. And
that is a pretty good one. I like that one.
She's
I even like the Silver Surfer a little bit.
Johnny calls her, "Oh, you're Invisible Girl," and she goes, "Invisible Woman." And I was like, "Yeah." A little off topic.
You call me Invisible Girl again? I swear to God.
Right. But let's try and let's tie this in. What is neurodivergent? What is do you have some insight on that for us?
That is a good tie-in because it often comes down to just mental health. We just watched a South Park episode where Cartman, he's not rich enough to be prescribed Ozempic, which is sometimes used for
weight
loss,
but it's meant for diabetes control.
Yeah, just putting that out there. Don't be like Drake. Don't be like Rick Ross. All these rappers taking Ozempic too. Just use your money to get a personal trainer and work hard. Yeah, and eat right. All that.
You can afford a chef.
But basically, Cartman, in the South Park episode, he cannot afford Ozempic. So he's like, here, I prescribe to you Lizzo. I prescribe to you Lizzo and Lizzo's music. And Lizzo is just, very body positive. She's just like
body affirming.
Right. Embrace yourself is the message. Which, I mean, isn't necessarily the best way to go about it if you're, like Cartman and grotesquely overweight. But you need to he is a little goblin, but you need to be like Sharon in the episode. She just embraces herself at the end, and that's like and her and Randy have a really nice moment there, just like, yeah, you're perfect for me just how you are. And that's like how you need to go about it. You need to just get in a situation where you don't have these huge expectations for yourself and how you want to look, and you need to just accept it at the end of the day, but still be healthy, obviously.
Yeah, you got to make an effort towards being healthy. It's not easy.
That actually is a good tie-in, and if you bear with me, I'll tell you how I can tie all this together.
Okay,
because so the body affirming, like you asked how it was kind of impacting me personally, and I follow a lot of women on social media who are starting to become brave and are actually just like showing up as themselves. They're showing up without any, filters or makeup, or not editing their photos. They've got some, like, maybe they've got some flab hanging over their pants, whatever. Like, they're just showing up like how they actually are authentically. And it's really body affirming and it's empowering. But the thing that is terrifying about it is that they get so much hate for showing up as they are, because they're written off as lazy or not trying hard enough, or not taking care of themselves enough, or whatever. And the way that I can kind of tie this into neurodiversity is, for me, as a neurodivergent individual, which I can like talk about what neurodiversity even
is. Just
but
being mentally ill?
No,
no, honestly,
it's a very direct way of asking the question, but the question stands.
No. Neurodiversity is simply just that people's brains work differently, and there's sort of like two subsets of neurodiversity that like two
right. I guess having ADHD isn't necessarily being mentally ill. It just is having an affliction that makes your brain a little different. Yeah, you have a condition, son. That's all.
So there's people who are neurotypical. That's their neurotype, and basically that just means that they have a really easy time kind of going with like the norms of society. Like that's just like, it works for them. It works for their brain. They have no problem sort of, meeting just whatever the societal expectations are. It's not difficult for them. And then there's people who have a different neurotype, and that could be any sort of thing. That could be autistic. That could be ADHD. That could be, they're a sociopath. That could be they have major depressive disorder. That could be they have PTSD. Like, the list goes on. But basically it's just any person whose brain works differently, and it makes it difficult for them to function in society, because society is kind of built for the neurotypical person. And 1 out of 7 people is neurodivergent. So like, the majority of people are going to be neurotypical. That's why things are built more around them. But then you've got this 1 in 7 person who has some sort of neurodivergence, and they have a hard time for whatever reason kind of going along with the norms of society. So, but a lot of people who are neurodivergent are, because their brain works differently, they're the people who tend to stand out in society. They tend to be like some of the most influential people. They're usually the most artistic. Like, most of our, most famous
Trump
artists
and Biden are definitely neurodivergent. They are autistic, though, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if dementia falls under neurodivergent. That's just loss of.
That's more just a condition.
That's just a condition.
But I mean, the thing stands. Like, Biden is a pathological liar, most likely a sociopath.
Well, he just doesn't remember what he's done.
But I'm thinking about like in the past. He's like a career politician, probably done a lot of bad things to get where he's at, if we're being honest. Like, anybody who's been in politics for as long as he has, since the
30
90s,
years,
30, 40 years, whatever. Yeah, you've seen and done some things that
he's been a part of some bad shit, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah,
for sure.
Shouldn't get full honest about.
Yeah, we might get whacked for that instead of Allie getting whacked for Boeing.
Honestly, but yeah, Trump is full on neurodivergent. That man is a megalomaniac, egotistic, narcissistic, crazy man with grand delusions that somehow came true. What do people in Washington think of Trump, Allie?
Oh man, if you are a Trump supporter here in Seattle, you are very much ostracized from the community.
I'm
sure, yeah.
Whatever happened with that the Chad zone, the autonomous zone, where they were?
I was talking to somebody about that the other day. Like, nothing, that was like not even a thing here, you know? Like, I had people texting me asking like if I was okay, and I was like, what are you even talking about? Like, I have no idea what's going on. And it's like, 3 miles down the road from me, and it was just like, unless people have been talking about it in the news, like, I would have had no idea that anything was going on.
And of course it was the news who blew up the whole situation too.
For sure. I mean, also, I wasn't ever in Capitol Hill, but even the people that were in Capitol Hill were like, it was like not really scary or like that big a deal.
Well, that's good. That is good.
Yeah.
It's funny that there was an autonomous zone in a major city in America where it's like, what the fuck do you mean?
It was so blown out of proportion. It was like just a bunch of shitheads who called it an autonomous zone, and then it was taken down in like a couple days or something.
And like, they called it Chad. Like, what is it? Come on. Chad? Yeah, Chad.
This is the Chad zone. You gotta be a Chad to be here.
It got way more publicity than it probably should have.
Right. I think the real reason it got so much publicity is I think there was a shooting or something that happened, and there was no police going in there because they weren't letting the police in. And I don't know if somebody died from the shooting or something, but I think that was the main driver.
See, and it may just be like me living in my own ignorant little bubble of like, they're 3 miles away. I don't live in that neighborhood. I don't know what's going on down there.
Like, 3 miles away isn't that far, but when you live in a big city, it is that far. Like, even like 3 blocks away is
3 miles
far.
away in a big city takes 25 minutes.
Exactly, right. So it's
for
like,
sure.
It's
for
not
sure.
it's
like,
not like you're right next door.
Really
it's not like you're
it's like they were in my city, but it might as well have been in a different state, like for how much it affected me personally.
Right, which is interesting. The news did make it. And I feel like they still talk about it every once in a while when they just want to shit on Seattle. Mostly Fox News.
I've never heard it talked about by anybody here. The only reason I talked about it the other day was because a friend from college was here on her way she was traveling to Korea. So she was here for a couple days, and she asked me about it. And up until then, it was like, nobody here ever, like, it's just like wasn't a thing.
Nobody even knew.
No. So that was what's funny.
Interesting.
That is funny. Speaking of nobody ever knowing, tying this back to neurodivergency, a lot of people who are neurodivergent, they just kind of hide from their employers the fact that they are this way. At least that was something I was reading in a Fortune article that we can't get to due to paywalls that we don't want to
unfortunately.
But,
I think the Zoom call only has 1 minute left as per this notice.
Bring it back here. You lost us, but we back, baby. We never gone. Allie, let me ask you, what do you think, since, Washington and Seattle especially is a very forward-thinking, progressive kind of place, and in the spirit of Mental Health Awareness Month, hopefully you guys are out there, a little more aware of it than us. Do you think that's the case? Do you think that people in that part of Washington and maybe just more liberal parts of the country in general are more aware of mental health, and are they constantly or just sometimes even just making accommodations for it? Because in most parts of the country, like I definitely was thinking about South Carolina, and I'm thinking about here in Illinois, that's definitely a secondary thought. It's not on the forefront of a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. I mean, compared to South Carolina, I would say, for sure. There's like a big improvement, I suppose, in just mental health being more acceptable kind of across the board. I've been sort of like out of the conventional corporate job environment for a while now, so I can't say, based on my own experience, like how well sort of, the companies are doing. But I think that
right, it is something that like it affects big companies more than smaller
it
ones.
does,
But I
do
guess I'm asking on a smaller level, like on your like, do people like your friends even, do they talk about it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's what I was gonna say next is, we, like, me and my big group of friends, and my friend group is very co-ed. So it's not just like girls who are willing to talk about the fact that we go to therapy. Like, I've got a bunch of guy friends too who, are open with the fact that they go to therapy, or they're working on stuff, or they're dealing with mental health things. And so that is definitely something that is new, like when we were in high school.
Hell yeah, that's
we
good
weren't
to hear.
talking about that.
Shout out to therapy.
No, yeah, definitely not. No therapy in high school for us.
Would have been nice though, if I had somebody to ask the questions that I was too uncomfortable to ask anybody else. I might have gotten some important answers.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Answers to questions I didn't even know I had at that time. But
yeah,
would have been damn grateful to have known.
Yeah,
that would have been for sure.
Agreed. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, it definitely is becoming more culturally acceptable, definitely up here. And I hope that it's becoming a little bit more culturally acceptable across the country too. I get the sense that it is, but here especially, it's definitely talked about pretty openly. And I think employers are a lot more understanding about people needing to do things for their mental health, because people are finally seeing that when you're not healthy mentally, like, that's just as inhibiting as when you're not healthy physically. So
that's really wise. Allie, I just want to leave you with many blessings and good mental health yourself. You really have been a great guest. I'm happy that the Zoom worked.
Yeah,
I'm happy
this is a great pod.
Yeah, I'm happy that everything seemed to go smooth. We'll have to bring you on here again next time we've got a Boeing plane malfunctioning.
Fiasco,
another Boeing fiasco, and we want another chat with you. Or anytime we want your insight, because
I was like, for Boeing's sake, I hope that you don't have to bring me back on for that, because I honestly hope that they do recover and can become, a company of integrity once again, because they make a fantastic product. Many people who work at the company still hold them in high regard. And, I think that they could be that again if they just started putting their priorities in the right places. So I don't want to like completely bash Boeing. They're a great company. Or they were great. I would like to see them be great again.
Hey,
but
you
I also would
see
love
the
to talk
potential.
to you guys another time about anything else.
Well, hey, that was fun. That was awesome. We appreciate you dropping in on Conspiracy Way and giving us the thought that it wasn't a Boeing employee directly who did it, but Boeing probably, they have a partner, they have a contractor that contracted it out to another contractor that got another contractor to sabotage that plane.
I gotta give my boyfriend cred for that, because I would never naturally think that way, but being around him for many years has led me to open my mind to a more conspiratorial possibilities.
The devious ways of the elite and the New World Order.
That's right.
Well, we'll have to tell our parents that you're becoming more conspiratorial. Mom might be all about that. You guys can share conspiracies together.
Look, I wouldn't say that I'm like a conspiracy theorist. All I'm saying is people are very greedy, and people in positions of power and influence do not like to lose their positions of power and influence.
Absolutely.
So when I think about it from that perspective, I feel like, crazy shit could happen when people are that desperate to keep their power. So
very wisely put.
Yeah.
So true.
You gotta keep your eyes peeled out here, people, because crazy shit is happening left and right, and you don't want to be caught up in the mix in any of it. Allie, once again, Thank you. And Sanjay, I think you should send us off here.
All right. Allie, thank you so much for coming on to the Full Honest Podcast. We love you as a friend, a great friend, a sister in Matt's case.
Yeah, I love you as a sister. We no Alabama out here. Nothing along those lines.
We appreciate you coming out and spending some time with us and giving us some insights on Boeing and some conspiracies on the way too. And everybody who's listening in or watching on YouTube or Spotify, wherever we put this bad boy next, we appreciate y'all too. Remember to like, comment, subscribe so you know when the next pod comes out. And thank you guys. Have a great night. See you, Allie.
See you again. Love you guys.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.